All right. Welcome back to Everyday Elevations, the podcast where we transform ordinary moments into extraordinary outcomes. So today I'm excited because we're on a very special event called Potapalooza. And so I have a very special guest today, and it's a very short notice podcast episode, and it'll be about 30 minutes long here. But with that, I'd love to introduce Jessper Maquindang, and he is the owner of Family Lead Management Consulting, which helps leaders and managers build stronger teams through team building activities, leadership assessments, and executive coaching. And he has over 12 years of experience improving the effectiveness and productivity of many teams. For him, he really tends to enjoy finding ways to inspire the collaboration camaraderie. Without me saying any more and taking all your thunder away, I'd love to let you just take it away.
Thank you, Jason. Great to join you. I'm excited to be here. Now, I want to share an early memory that my mother had of me, and she shared it with me a few years ago. But the early memory that she had of me was when I was maybe about 5 or 6 years old. I had said, when I grow up, I want to be a leader. When I grow up, I want to be a leader. When you think about that, that sounds really neat and cool. But from a 5 or 6 year old, what does that 5 or 6 year old know about leadership? Such an advanced topic for someone that age. I might as well said, "Mom, when I grow up, I'd like to study macroeconomics." But back to leadership. Uh, I realized that over time, though, different opportunities within leadership just fell into my lap. I just remember growing up and so many people just encouraging me to do community work, community service, volunteer, help nonprofits. And then when I went into college, I got involved in extracurricular activities like student government and new student orientation. And when I graduated right out of college, I was in my first job, I was promoted into a leadership role where I was actually supervising a team. And that gave me an opportunity to really experiment and hone in on these different leadership concepts that I've learned over the years. And then I was just inspired, but what I was doing, I went back to school to get my executive master's degree in leadership. And then upon graduating, I landed into a management development program for a Fortune 500 company. So I have an academic and corporate background in leadership. But what I've learned over the years, this idea of leadership, what it means to me, it's really making a difference within your life and the lives of others. So that's really what's inspired me to really take this journey and go for it.
Love it. I want to backtrack to when you were a child, talk about leadership. At that moment in time, what did it mean for you versus now?
Absolutely. As a child, like I said, the idea of a 5 or 6 year old just announcing and claiming leadership, where would that come from? As I think about it, maybe it was some of the TV shows or something I was watching or listening to, because I grew up during the Nickelodeon age, and you'd have these cartoons such as the Rugrats, and then you had these TV shows like Kenan and Kel, and I realized these main characters in these stories, they take the lead and take their followers or the supporting cast, they'll take them into just wild adventures, and you'll just see what they go through, and you'll see obstacles and challenges, and many times these main characters, they get into trouble, like for example Kenan and Kel, the trouble that they go through. But in the end, they learn these lessons that help them realize just important life lessons. And I think that's where leadership is as a superpower, just going through these obstacles and learning lessons from them is what I see as the great leadership superpower.
Love it. Okay. So tell me about this. You are an expert in team building here, and you work Fortune 500 companies. I love that you have all this leadership experience. And the fact you wanted, it's still blowing my mind for a minute here. Just the fact that at 5 years old, you're like, hey, I want to be a leader, because you not a normal thing, which is amazing. So explains how your path went the way it did. And it's amazing that it still did, because, as a kid, you always say you want to be something. And most of the time that changes 1,000 times over. And clearly that was something that really meant something to you when you said it. But with that, I'm kind of curious in terms of your expertise in team building. What are some strategies you would recommend for a newer company? Let's say like a company like 5 years or less that maybe has 50, 60 employees.
Absolutely. So when it comes to team building and setting up the right team culture, the first thing I'd like to share is really finding that purpose. Many people have seen the talk from Simon Sinek where start with why. And that is important. Finding that mission, finding that vision that can inspire other people to really make a difference with you. It's valuable, especially for small companies who are really trying to grow, because there are so many obstacles and just challenges in that growth process that you'll find just stumbling blocks left and right. And your team, there are moments that they may get discouraged because of these challenges that are just cropping up left and right. But if you remind them what you stand for, that your mission in your organization is to really make a difference, if you can instill that message into your team's heart, that's where they'll be inspired to really move forward. And whatever comes their way, I mean, sure, challenges will be challenges. It's not always easy, but if you can give them that inspiring mission, they'll continue to move forward with you. The second thing I would go ahead. I think you
Oh no,
wanted to share
I
a
was
thought.
just gonna sum up. So basically, create a mission statement that they can buy into, that the
Yes,
company and the employees can buy into. Okay,
yes,
awesome.
absolutely. Because when you think about building a team culture, uh, culture in general, it's more than just pizza parties. It's more than just bring your dog to work day. It's more than casual Fridays. It's really, setting up that mission, value, and purpose that helps your employees understand what they're working toward. So that's a really big part of really setting up a great team. The second part is active listening. We see so many leaders around the world that because of their title, they feel this special privilege that they can make all the decisions and stand atop the mountaintop and here's my decree, here's my uh, instructions everyone should follow because I am the so-called leader. But in today's world, that's not really going to have an inspirational effect. We're seeing so many employees that are just burned out and overwhelmed because there are these micromanagers who just walk by someone's desk and just drop that folder of paperwork. And when you just see that work just thump on your desk, you're thinking to yourself, just another day. But when you, as a leader, you're being more intentional about listening to your employees, giving them that voice, they'll give you perspectives and insights that you had never considered before. Because if you're closing off that channel of communication, they might not be open to sharing another good idea ever again. But if you're really intentional about saying, hey, Jason, what's on your mind? I'd like to improve this process. What ideas do you have? And you say, oh, let's try this, this, and this. And for me as a leader to say, Jason, wow, let's experiment and just see where that goes. Just like that metaphor saying goes, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Let's try that. And then over time, we might actually find some real improvements. And then third is, I would recommend is this sense of belonging and connectedness. What we're seeing in today's world, especially past the pandemic, we're seeing more people working remotely and hybrid. Back in the days before, when it was the norm to be in person, it was easier for employees, staff members, team members to just step aside from their desk and walk to someone else's cubicle and say, Jason, how are you doing? But nowadays, it's just not as common. So leaders need to be more intentional about opening up that communication channel and setting up meetings just to check in, not for the sake of checking in to see how your work's going, but checking in to seeing how you're doing and how we can make your day a little bit better. Because especially in this world where people are looking for that sense of connection, that's really crucial in building that relationship with your team.
Yeah. Oh, I can't agree more. It's one of the things that, so fortunately, my current company, I work in the office, or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, because it would be nice to work from home with a baby. But at the same time, I love the fact that I can check in with people and see how they're doing. One of the hardest things for me to navigate for my previous company was that digital, the Zoom life. Very hard to build a team dynamic when you're not seeing that person face to face and you're only catching up with them in these little one-off meetings throughout the week. And really, those are mostly work-related meetings too, is the thing. So what wasn't happening is what you're talking about, where hey, it's just someone checking in. That happened like once a month. So my supervisor was amazing, by the way. One of my favorite supervisors I ever had. But it's one of those things where I always wish, like, hey, we got to chat more, maybe go out for like a team lunch or something. Like those are little things that I feel like could help build that team dynamic a little bit better. And along that same vein, I kind of curious what your thoughts are on how to build um, camaraderie and team cohesion in today's, well, Zoom world, for lack of a better term.
That's right. And you brought up some excellent points. When it comes to really building that camaraderie, when you have team meetings, try to find some ways to really get to know your team members instead of just having the agenda out and going through task A, task B, task C, adjourn, we're done. What you want to do is maybe at the beginning of the meeting, have maybe an icebreaker and ask a question to see, what's your favorite this, what's your favorite that, maybe favorite car, favorite ice cream flavor, just to really get to know your team members. And then at the end of the meeting, or as well as maybe before, have these check-ins to see, especially with a virtual team, how's everyone doing? Because I know a lot of meetings are based on checking on progress. How is your work coming along? But do a check-in to see how you feeling today and how you feeling about the day. That way, when you get that perspective, you know how to adjust your approach to making the day more effective for everyone else. So that's one way to do it. Another way is having team building activities, virtual, in person. Either way, there are many programs that are available that you can put together even for yourself to really get team members to just engage more with each other.
Okay, I love it. Thank you so much for those tips. Because I mean, just being in HR myself, I'm trying to find ways
Yeah.
to. It's easier for me because again, in office, but I always try to find new ways to help people build that team up. And newer companies, a lot more difficult. But in the Zoom world, whew, it was even so much harder. But yeah, there's a lot of. I know we played games back in my previous company. Some I forgot what the name of the games were, but they're like trivia games essentially, and that was a lot of fun. We got to give gift cards out at the end of that, and it just created a whole good feeling with everybody. So I love the fact that that's one of the tips you gave. I kind of want to touch on something else here that correlates with all this, but we talked about leadership.
Yes.
Um, what are some ways that you can find out if your leadership tactics are working? Like, how do you know you're being an effective leader?
Excellent. That goes with self-awareness, especially when understanding your effectiveness. There are there are two ways you can do that. One is just getting feedback from others. It does take some humility, but it's absolutely important to make sure you have that effectiveness. You can go to a team member and say, Jason, just curious, based on how I did today, how did I handle that meeting? And then you can say, well, Jesper, you could have done this, this, and this better. That gives me a better perspective of how I can make that next meeting much better for you. Another way to develop that self-awareness is there are plenty of leadership assessments out there that give you a direct understanding of what drives your behavior. And then when you look at how those results are formatted, you can see this is how I react in this situation. This is how I react in this situation. This is how I can react in this situation. And based on that knowledge, you have a better understanding of when a new challenge or obstacle comes your way, you'll have a better understanding of how to approach that next time. So again, those two ways in understanding your leadership. One, I encourage leaders to really go out and talk to your people and say, based on a certain event, how could we approach that better? And then the other one for self-awareness is taking these assessments. That way you have this direct knowledge of how your leadership is being expressed to others. So excellent question.
Okay. No, thank you for the answers. I'm kind of curious because what I found personally is, especially being HR, everyone thinks we're the boogeyman for some reason. Like I have way more fun hiring people than I do removing people. That's why I try and tell people, listen, there's a dirty side of the job, but there's also a bright, sunshiny part of the job, which is most of the job for me. Um, but I find that approaching people and trying to get authentic answers is sometimes difficult because they're not sure if they can give that answer, or they're just scared to talk to leadership in general because they don't want to voice their opinion. How would you navigate around that?
Absolutely. So the reason that many employees tend to soften their feedback is because they feel that their job is at stake. And if they say something like, Jason, the building is on fire, you might say, oh, they might have that feeling that, okay, Jason might let me go because I just screamed at the top of my lungs and suddenly it's scaring people. What you want to do is create a sense of psychological safety. You want to set up the expectation that when employees share feedback, especially honest feedback, that you're not going to retaliate. You're going to create a safe space where they can share whatever ideas they have, both good and bad. Because when you set up that foundation of honest communication, that'll give your opportunities. That'll give opportunities to your employees to really open up and share what's on their mind. Because when you have that direct, clear perspective, you have a better understanding of ways in just improving processes at work. I think it was Brene Brown. She said that clear is kind. And when you think about that, being clear, yes, it does show that respect, that you do care enough, that regardless of how direct you want your feedback to be, it's because you're trying to make things better for yourself and the other people. So really setting up that expectation for people to really have a safe space to express their voice. And that's what really creates that better team culture.
Amazing. Okay, we definitely have to do a more extended podcast, by the way. So we're going to connect after this. With that, being that we do have a short amount of time, I'd love to give you the floor if there's anything you didn't get a chance to touch on, and if there's ways that people could reach out to you in case they want to get some leadership advice from you, as well as if they want to get you on podcasts. I have plenty of podcasts that actually listen to my podcast because they're a lot of my friends. So love for you to take the opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, there was an excellent point that you brought up earlier, and that was when you had your meetings and check-ins with your managers and with your manager. One thing I'd like to share with the leaders and managers out there, when you set up your check-ins with your team members, employees, or staff members, they don't have to be anything formal or official or structured. It can be something as simple as a 5-minute check-in. Just set it in your calendar and set up the expectation that you just want to check in. Because if you send a quick message like, hey, Jason, we need to talk, that type of tone might set up a scary expectation. But when you say, on the other hand, Jason, like to check in with you just to see how you're doing. 5 minutes this Friday. Really want to know what's on your mind. That really sets up a better expectation of having a more comfortable experience in bringing that check-in together. So as far as reaching out to me, 2 ways. You can visit my website, familyconsulting.com. There is a complimentary gift available on the website, and to find out what that is, visit the website. And the easier way to reach me is through LinkedIn. Search for Jessper Maquindang. More than happy to have conversations about leadership, personal growth, professional development, teamwork, culture. Feel free to reach out. I enjoy those conversations. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on here. This has been a really fun call for me, especially being an HR guy. I always try to find ways to build better culture and to lead from the front. So I love having this conversation. With that, just want to thank anybody and everybody that's tuning in when this episode does get released. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you. If you enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, leave a detailed review. Like 5 stars are great, but if you can leave a reason why you enjoyed the episode or maybe what you'd like to learn more about, that's even more beneficial than any like or subscribe can be for me. So I'd appreciate if you could do that. And also, I am getting ready to release a wellness diary, so a blog providing tips from all the episodes of this podcast. So feel free to sign up there at everydayelevationspodcast.com. And thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you, Jason. Had a great time on your show.